Hello, how you guys doing? Let's do it to it. Okay, dokie. Let's see what do we got here from our learning. Let me get a sip, and then we'll get right into it. Okay. Let's see how everything's going. I just want to make sure, see if we're streaming okay. Okay. Okay, we're live. Good. Okay, perfect. Let's do it to it. Just want to make sure everything's going good with the streaming. You know, you always want to keep an eye on that. So let's see what do we got here from. Okay. This section in the chapter called Little Topics Tactics. See, we're in the chapter 3, Little Tactics, right now, and the section is called separate boxes. Separate boxes. So we're gonna get to see what that means. We'll set up the position so we can look at it we're when we're talking about it, so that we have an example, and then I'll read it to you so that you can see as we go. Again, you'll have an example. So I guess that's the best term to. It's good to have a visual example when you're doing learning. So that's good. Let's make sure we have this right. Everything's good so far. Yep. And it's white to move. Alright. I'm going to do a study. Okay, dokie. Alright. Okay, let's see here. We'll find out what the guy's name is here. N-E-C-K. Let me make sure I got that right. H-E-R-T-N-E-C-K. Perfect. Versus. Let's see. Okay. Okay, perfect. And we're gonna look at it from White's perspective. We gotta first enlarge the board. There we go. Man, let's see if I can get any larger. Nope. Okay, up to the top we go. There we go. Most players have regard moves as being either tactical or positional. They like to divide and basically discuss those two individually, putting them in separate boxes. That makes studying easier. They can look at white to play and win positions to sharpen their tactical skills. They can look at master games with positional themes to understand what strategy is all about. But this blinds them to the benefit of forcing positional moves like whites like what white plays in this game here. So we have to see what white's going to play here. Okay. Okay, let me take care of this. White, basic idea is to attack and win the d5 pawn. Say with knight d, let's get a move. What was played here for white was b4 exclam. So this is actually the best move to go along with trying to win this pawn here. But white may try to win the pawn via knight d to f4. Knight d f4. Knight d. How's f4? Oh, right here, here, and then in here. This is kind of the idea that they're talking about. Knight d e2 to f4. That's an idea that they can white could try to triple up an attack on the pawn. But black has several defensive continuations, and then if that doesn't work, you always have queen d1 and then rook f d1 coming over, and you have more pressure on the isolated d5 pawn. Black has several defensive chances though. Like if, let's just say knight here, the knight could actually potentially go to e4 and kind of clog up the position a little bit. Even if knight to here is played. This is kind of an interesting continuation. There's also knight e6, which potentially could be playable. That's another idea. And after all the trades happen, the queen's pinned, and you can potentially go after some lines as well. So, but b4 was actually played here. It's this is what actually back here, those type of moves for black, either e4 or knight e4 or knight e6, depends on the circumstances. Quite often white's moves which have, let's say, a non-forcing kind of feel behind them actually overcome the defenses. It'll actually overcome by quiet moves. White can overcome black's defensive chances. But white decides to at this point play b4 because of one thing: forcing black to choose a square for the knight immediately. Then if knight e6 is ruled out, the only move that's left is knight e4, and this allows this move continuation. So knight e4 by black. The continuation that white played was actually knight takes e4. But there is another continuation that could potentially happen, which is knight de2 exclam. This is a subtle move here, because what we're trying to do is get our knight to f4 like the plan, and go after the position. Like if knight takes here, then knight takes c3, and we're triple attacking. And if bishop takes, then rook takes, and again we can do another triple attack with rook d3. And if the knight doesn't attack, let's say the knight doesn't take, but they play, let's say, queen up here, then knight f4 and rook fd8, and then now you just have such an overwhelming position after knight takes, pawn takes, queen takes, knight takes, and I'm thinking rook, then d, and there's really no way to guard. You could try something like this, maybe something rook d1 and then up, and then something like that. But I'm not sure. Maybe I was over. Maybe I went a little too over on that one. Maybe you could do an instant sacrifice right now of this, and then knight takes here, and then bishop takes, then queen takes, rook takes, bishop takes, and you actually have won a pawn. That's the move continuation. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, that's not the. It's actually taking here. I have to get rid of this line. That it's taking f takes. And if the queen can't take, so the bishop has to take, and then knight takes knight at that point. Don't take the bishop, take the knight. And then now, if you wanted to try to keep the pieces on the board, you could play something like that. Actually, after takes here, bishop takes, the rook would have to potentially double. And white has an advantage with basically pushing these pawns and doubling up and going for a win, being a pawn up. So there, the white has two results, a draw or a win, and black has two results, a loss or a draw. Okay, so at this point, the knight traded off, intending to answer. This is actually what was played, so oops, sorry about that. I had the wrong thing. Knight takes. Wait, knight takes e4. Bishop, got it. I have to promote this. Bishop takes. Okay, I didn't have the correct line continuation. And so now what we're looking at is knight takes e4, intending if pawn takes pawn takes e4 or d takes e4, white would answer with knight c6 exclam. This idea trades off the queens, and if the queen traded off, then now we have two centralized pieces, and we also have the ability of going after this pawn. So like if rook came over to ac8, we potentially can play bishop takes e4, and we've actually won a pawn. And then we can support our knight with if need be b5, and then b5, and if the pawn attacks, we have a4, and we're good to go. There's really nothing that black could do at that point. So that's why black kind of went into a line down. There's also, let me see, is there any other? Okay, let me see here. Trying to figure out if there's anything else after if okay, here. Okay, bishop takes rook. This is the other line continuation that you would have to consider. Then rook takes, and if queen e8 to keep the queens on the board, queen d6. And this is a really interesting position to take scope on, because you're now, if the bishop comes there, you're in a world of hurt as well, because you always have queen here, and then you can attack the pawn there. And yeah. Hey, what? Hey, how you doing? So bishop takes d4 was played. That's why bishop takes d4. A in-between move. Black's point is that without a white knight and with black's pawn on e4 rather than on d5, there is no significant edge for white here. But what they don't realize is that knight to c6 actually is an exclam continuation, with the idea of if queen, I think, let's see, if queen were to take here, then that's actually still a losing move. But if there's also one other line, if white didn't, if white didn't move the knight up so that the pawn wouldn't block the bishop, we want to keep this the d5 pawn for black isolated. And if we actually played queen takes here, this wouldn't be as good as our move with d6. And potentially it's not the best move, because they could actually just take here, and now their pawns are actually connected. Oh, the idea behind this is black has an isolated pawn on d5, and why we're trying to why we're trying to not allow this to have anybody to protect it. If you took like what we just showed here, and then takes, and let's say something like this, you always have potentially f5. Now the pawn's protected, and this bishop is free to roam the board. Yes, it's on the same color as our bishop, and it is a target for white, but it's going to be really hard to take scope on that pawn now that it has a fellow brother who can actually protect it. But by moving the knight and not allowing that at the present moment, this keeps the d5 pawn isolated, so it's without any reinforcements. The only way it could be reinforced is by stronger units, and that's kind of, you have to look at these positional moves, and it may look like, yeah, I'm going to take the bishop with my queen to make my queen stronger, but in reality, positionally, Karpov would spot that moving the knight to d6 would actually, even though you're giving up a piece and you basically win it back, the difference in this position is if the queen took here, you then could take now, rather than a pawn for black being on e4, the pawn is still on d5, and it doesn't have anybody to help, and the more pieces that come off the board will actually win. There's actually a Jeremy Silman talks about this, that what you actually want to do at this point when you have an isolated pawn, your opponent has an isolated pawn, you want to trade down into a queen and one rook versus queen and one rook endgame. And the idea is if these pieces were off the board here, and let's say that the rook got here, and it was white to move, this rook got here. Let's say it's in full defense, black is. White has one move, and it's the e4 pawn move that is very vital at this point. It would just wreck black's position, and then black would have to trade off all the pieces, and we would have a pass pawn. Our king then could, if we needed to, move all the way over to the queen side, gobble these pawns up, while black's worrying about these pawns coming up the board. We walk our king over and gobble all these pawns up, and then we're winning an endgame. Do you see how certain one move, a knight d6, can actually even make an endgame winning? By just one move in the middle game changes the endgame potential for victory for you, then a draw, and you lost all your advantage. So you have to think end game, even in the middle game. Of course, if there's a tactic, that 1-2 knockout punch, go for that, of course. If you see a tactic that's winning, like a puzzle rush tactic, more the merrier, win the game. But if you don't and you have to play Karpovian, basically like positional play, this is a Karpovian idea of knight d6. It keeps the pawn on d5. I know I emphasized that a lot, but it is vital to remember in positional play, you're constantly making, keeping weaknesses for you to later on target. And that's how positional players, I've noticed, win their games. They have their opponents have so many weaknesses to guard that one of them's gonna collapse, and then eventually all their pieces are so overworked defending, then they just move in and basically destroy their opponents like that. And it's kind of interesting to a positional player like Yasser Seirawan, that's how he would have also spotted this. Grandmaster Yasser Seirawan would have seen this knight to d6 move. It's a hard move to see for beginning players that are improving. I should say improving players, because that you're watching and staying on and learning means that you want to improve. So for improving players, you have to be on the lookout for knight d6. But the move that okay, black did play that move. Okay, he did actually take the knight. I thought he might have played something different, but he actually went down that move, actually, surprisingly. Surprising, huh? There was another line that potentially could happen if you were spotting the idea of bishop a6. That is a typical idea. You could play knight takes d6 at that point. I mean, queen takes d6. Then if bishop takes f1, because our rook really, remember what we're talking about in Andrew Solstice is what it takes to become a master chess player is if the rook on f1 wasn't doing anything, which it's not working to its fullest, and that bishop that was on a6 was doing a lot of work for black, by us trading off positionally, black lost a lot of their initiative and energy for an attack by playing that move. And we have to start thinking that way. Don't think in he moves there, I move there, he moves there, my opponent moves here, I move there, my opponent moves here. Think ideas. What's the idea in this game is based on d5. And yes, we sometimes have to sacrifice material to get a winning edge. So always remember that to look for if my pieces aren't doing the best. Even if it's a major piece and you exchange it for a minor piece, if that minor piece is more positionally valued higher than that rook, then sometimes you have to let an exchange up happen, because positionally it's better for you. Okay, let's continue on after a6, bishop takes. Okay, bishop takes d5 here, exclam. Of course, we see the old puzzle rush idea. If the queen were to take at this point, this would be a mistake galore here. They gave it a 1 thing. I'd almost give it 2. He gave it 1. I'd give it 2, because this is actually, in my opinion, the losing move. Because then after takes on f7, if the rook were to take, then queen takes. And how do you handle now? Yes, you do have 2 rooks for the queen, but you're the one an exchange down in theory, because the queen and the rook. But these rooks do, if they work together well, they can cause white some misery, but I'd rather be a queen up than having 2 rooks, because unless I'm in a just a queen versus 2 rooks, then I like 2 rooks, because they work together as a team better. Oh wow, that's cool. Really? That's neat. That's hard to get. Those aren't rarely given out. Exclam ones are. Just one exclam, not two. It has to be a really well played move for that to happen. But that's kind of the continuation after that. And then there's also one other continuation. If a6 there, let me see, I gotta make sure I have this here, hold on. See, there. Oh, okay, got it. Okay, perfect. Okay, if the queen doesn't take, but the bishop plays h3, excuse me. If the bishop just plays h3, then the bishop would actually grab the rook here. So we'd be the one that's attacking the rook. And then queen takes. Now you're the bishop's threatening mate on g2, bishop and queen. So pretty sneaky move here. But then all we do is play e4, and we're good to go. Everything is we're a pawn up. There's really not much that black could do. And we're safe. And eventually what we're going to play is f3, support the pawn, get the king to f2, and later on move it up the board. So positionally we're going to do an endgame where white's up a pawn, and I prefer white at this point. So black didn't want to see that type of continuation problem, and so they just took. Then there's rook 88. So they're black's trying their darndest to actually hold on to the d5 pawn. But eventually all the soldiers will be so overworked and white will come in with a crushing victory. So fd1, and positionally, potentially pretty soon e4 will be a playable idea, and that will win a pawn, and the position will fall apart for black. f5 is a move black's trying their hardest to stop e4 from happening. It's like they're trying everything. They're like, just stop, please, don't push e4. I'm even playing f5. I'm weakening my king to stop this basically total positional destruction move for white to destroy. Okay. Queen b2, and this actually sets up if you can't make any more progress on the d5 pawn, what you're going to have to do is potentially double up. And so what white's going to try to do is play rook c to d2, and then try to get queen b3, and then have a pin, maybe queen b3 first, then rook up and over to pin this pawn. And you just have to be creative in how you think. Don't just calculate. If you have to calculate, he even said in there, sometimes if you're defending, you do got to calculate what your opponent's going to do, of course. But if you see that this pawn is weak, you see that potentially a pin is possible, take advantage of that. And that's the idea. Rook f7. And now black's in full defensive mode, trying to get rook fd7 and just try to defend themselves. And so d4. Oh, interesting. I didn't see that. That's actually a much better move. Yeah, that's a better way of actually getting this. I think, yeah, that's a much better way of getting it. Because this stops the pawn from progressing any further. Then you can also play cd1 and queen b3. This rook move is really an interesting move here. It kind of shields the king so that queen b3 doesn't have as much power to it, because there's no pin against the pawn to the king anymore. So white switches to their other idea a little bit slower, which is rook d4 and rook cd1 and then queen b3. Now all of white's pieces are attacking the d pawn, and black doesn't have enough. Black would actually have to shift this rook over fd7, and then by that happening, now the pawn's pinned, and the queen move on b3 actually does do something at that point. Okay. Righty then, d5. Okay, queen e5 here. The queen's trying to get out of the way of an attack. Rook cd1, like what we're saying. Queen hold on. Rook cd. Hold on. Rook cd1. Queen d2. What did I miss something here? Oh, I gotcha. What after this move here? They're saying queen queen to d2. I'm not sure if that's stronger. Is queen b3 a stronger continuation? I'm not sure. Not sure if queen b3 might be not stronger at that point. I think maybe it's based on the protection of the rook. I don't know if I want. See, I don't know if I want my queen right on d2. I want it to also be attacking the pawn, but not in harm's way at that point. But maybe the reason they didn't play that move was if we were to take here after all the takes, maybe the bishop would somehow take back, attacking the queen. So maybe that's the idea why queen d7 or queen d2 is better. That interesting idea. There's two. You have to always think about which one of these attacking moves is best, and you got to ask yourself, why would the player play queen d2? Is that what's the idea behind it? And when you start asking those questions, a new look on chess will start coming out of that. There's always a reason for certain moves. I think the reason, now that I think about it, why queen d2 is a good move. Let's say that black shifts over here. I now understand why queen d2 is a good move. And let's say that the king just comes up. Well, now the pawn can actually be pushed. You see, this is kind of the idea, and that if the king comes over here, now you have e4. Beforehand, well, I guess that still could have worked either way. I guess it still could have worked. This way it still could have worked. And then if king up, still protected. And then if king comes up, then you have that there. And if takes. Oh, I see. Okay. He can't take here. So maybe king over, and then after this takes, and it does kind of lose a lot of its yeah, that's the reason it doesn't work. Okay, that's the reason. Now I understand why this move is played here. Because let's say this happens, let's say here the king moves over, and there, let's say all the exchanges come off. Now this actually is winning. Okay, I understand now why. It's all based on the pressure of d7. Okay, that makes sense. That makes more sense, because the other way, the queen after all the exchanges happens, there's really nothing left. And this way, bishop drops off the board. You're also up a whole rook. Okay, that makes more sense. Why queen d2? Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Okay. Alrighty, let's get on to our other one. See how we're doing on time. Perfect. We have enough time probably for one more after this one. Nice. I'll get this one set up. This is a game, it's Gruschek as white versus Geary as black. So we're going to get, and it's 2011. Oops, there we go. That's why you just, my chess, Team Chess Cruncher, you just gotta work. If you wonder why a move is played like that, just go over it, play it out, see why your idea either works or doesn't work. Maybe you found a better move, maybe you found a move that didn't work, but now you understand why that piece was there, and that will help you improve. And it'll make you kind of double look and say to yourself, do I want my piece there? And maybe you'll look one move further, or one idea further. Okay, let's get these pieces in play. Okay, let me make sure I have all this right. Okay. Alright. Okay, great. Nice. It's black to move here, so it's Gary's move. Study. I have to put in the players' names, and then we can get started on it. Okay, we gotta look at it from Gary's perspective now. Okay, this we've entered a whole nother section. Oops. Get out of there. A whole nother section. There, it's called pretty combinations. Complications. Tactics are not the same as combinational play. A tactical move typically makes a threat. A combination typically offers a sacrifice. Both may secure a positional advantage. Joel Raul Capablanca was famous for making a pretty combination. A little combination. Here's a modern example of a little combination followed by a little tactic. So this is a little combination followed by a little tactic. Let me get a drink of, and then we'll get going. Okay, black played c5. There is sound reason behind this. After so Gruschek declined the idea and then played knight e6. So we're just going to look at the idea. I didn't want to have to promote the move. So the idea behind c5 that Giri was looking for Gruschek to fall into basically was d takes c6, b takes c6, which would do a small tactic on the queen. And then we all also have a knight that could go to d5, and positionally we have an outpost. We're okay, and b2 is under heat. But Gruschek didn't fall for that, and he now has a majority on the king side and even a little bit into the queen side. So that's why he sets up a small tactic of his own here. Which this exposes the pressure of black's king at the end with the bishop to this bishop line here, and then this line here with the bishop and queen power is huge. F takes E was played by Giri, and D takes E was played by Gruschek. If Giri had, let me see here. Actually, Giri played let me see here. Did I forget a piece somewhere? Oh no, did I forget a piece? Oh drat. Snap. I forgot a piece for white. I'm so sorry guys, hold on. Pardon my my thing here. Drat. I knew there was something wrong. Sorry about this. I really thought I had all the pieces set up. That's kind of peculiar. But you know what? You got to go with the flow. Just reset it up. Make sure that you have all the pieces proper. And you know what? If you have to reset them up, do it. As long as you're learning from it, that's all that matters. It's not if you make a mistake, it's how you handle the mistake. Do you get frustrated, or do you say, you know what, I'll just reset it up and keep pushing forward? And as Team Chess Cruncher, we reset it up and just keep pushing forward, and that's the name of that tune. Let's now make sure I have everything. Oh, I almost forgot a knight, so that would have been tragic again. Let's see here. Okay, now we're spot on here. Oops, almost forgot a knight again. That's why I constantly go over these and make sure I'm not forgetting any pieces. I don't forget the pawns. It's just sometimes the pieces escape me. I forget to add them. Okay, that's good. Okay. Alright. We will now reinstitute there. This makes a lot more sense now. Okay, I will delete the prior Gruschek one and Giri. Here, I gotta delete this one. Maybe I'll make this there we go. I look at it from black's perspective. There we go. Save the chapter. Okay, now let's delete this. perfect. Now we have all the pieces properly placed. Okay, c5. What? No, let's go back. Hold on. Hold on. Let me make a move for white. Drat. Perfect. Okay. Then I don't have to set up the pieces. I forgot to switch. There we go here. Okay. Thought I made it black to play. I did have it black to play, didn't I? Ah, there we go. Now, let me make sure I have this right. Again. Okay. There we go. Now we got it. We'll play that tune one more time. Must be something interesting that this is going on, you know. Sometimes things happen and you just gotta go with the flow. There we go. Okay, let's delete. We will get this, not to worry. It will not overtake us. Okay, now we got it. Hip hip hooray. You gotta laugh at it. Okay. Grushchuk played knight e6, which is an exclam move. If, of course, we find out this, then that's under fire, so we don't want to do that. So Giri took and then took here. Giri played King h8. If Grushchuk played e takes d7. If Grushchuk there was a line continuation other than that, which is an interesting move, which would have been bishop takes d6 exclam. If this had been played, or rook takes d6 exclam is also a playable move. Then e takes d6, and then e4. Hold on, what am I? Hold on, let me see. What did I? Did I miss something here? Let me see. Hold on. Let me see. This combination's not working like I thought it would. Trying to figure out what move I may have overlooked here. After d takes. maybe we'll just make a move. We'll just say bishop c6. So now if rook takes d, then pawn takes, then there's a check there. I think there might have been a move that might have been, so I have to delete those out. If bishop takes there, then pawn push, and you lose a queen. So that's kind of the idea. I'll just delete those, delete these because that's not right. Somehow I didn't see there was a move. I don't see the continuation there, so not sure. Maybe e takes d6 or something like that. So, but we'll continue onward. Okay, after queen takes d7, the combination is over, and we can appreciate the fruits. It is a bore for white here, though. It's a boring position. He enjoys several positional pluses, including two bishops, an isolated e7 pawn, and basically the e6 pawn, e6 square for white to jump into could be a threat that white can play. So you have this weakness here, you have these two bishops, and you even have a hole for your knight to outpost on without anything that could attack it. There are there's number of promising moves to consider in this position. There's there's bishop f3, like coming here. There's bishop f3. There's knight a4, and then there's queen b6. And if you wanted to stop here and take a look at what Gruschek might have played, and you're watching this on pre-recording, stop here and then try to find which one of the moves Gruschek played. Did he play bishop f3, knight a4, or queen b6? Only one of them is an exclam. So stop now and give yourself some time to go over it. If you want to just continue with us, just let it keep playing, and we'll go over what the move is. It's actually queen b6. So an exclam move by Gruschek. Let me get a drink. We may be able just to get these two in tonight. We'll see. I'll have to check to see what the next game is. I may be able to get one more in. I can't promise that, though. So let me see. What did Geary play? Oh, he played queen c6. But if Geary had played, let me see here. The potential threat is queen takes c5, and bishop takes d6, e takes d6, and rook takes d6 at that point, after the queen takes on c5. And there's a lot of strong move continuations after that. Black again tries for the B file with queen c6. The queen takes c6, and then b takes c6, and Gruschek then locks down these pawns here. These are pawns that are locked down now. That move actually gets an exclam mark because it's actually neutralizing two pawns. One pawn is. He says it's amazing how 4 pawn weaknesses are created here. There's 4 different pawn weaknesses. And these are what the super grandmasters do, like what we just talked about. They just make so many weaknesses for their opponents that they just can't handle it anymore. And how do you handle all these weaknesses? These are just overwhelming. It's going to be overwhelmingly hard for Giri to hold this position. Black has a lot of counterplay here. Giri actually resigned. He could have tried for knight fe4. Knight fe4 here. Then knight takes e4. Bishop takes e5. Knight takes c5 here. Rook to a8. And then knight to d7 exclam. That could be what was played, but Giri actually resigned after. So this actually gets a much better. I'll have to put winning. Winning for black is winning at this point. I'll even put an exclam winning. And Giri resigned. There's really no way to handle. Khrushchev's going to win a pawn. So looking back with queen b6 here. It looks, looking back, we can detect the little combination on e6 for white, that Khrushchev played, started the whole thing, and then a lesser combination of queen b6 was less forcing, but it still gained several advantages. But its threat to win a pawn secured a 1 endgame for Khrushchev. Let me see here. Boris Gulfed, our GUKO, the only player to win the championship of the Soviet Union and the United States, grew up as a fan of Mikhail Tal. What he particularly admired in Tal's combination is that when one was over, what was left on the board was not any winning positions, but let me see. What was left on the board was not and wins, and basically like that he can win a huge amount of material, but that his position was winning. Basically, that's what the author is trying to say. The position, but one that had forgotten somewhat better. One that had gotten somewhat better of a position. They can improve on an equal position or a worse position into an equal position, or often make an unclear position more clear. And that's what he said. In fact, in the game, Tal called his favorite the feature combination was necessarily no more than a clear way of trading down queens. This is what Mikhail Tal played. We can do this one because it's a smaller one. Sometimes the wordage is hard to express and read, so I apologize about that. But the whole thing is, what they're trying to say is Mikhail Tal his tactics didn't always just outright win. If I can kind of, interpret a little bit what the author is saying, is that the player who was talking said that he didn't always have a winning position, but his position was always slightly better, and Tal was able to turn an unclear position into a clear position that was better for him. It wasn't always winning, but it was better. And so the higher rated you go up, higher ratings, when you're going to basically be able to take small advantages, and then as I like to say in a greenhouse, take that seed of the small advantage and grow a plant from it. But it's going to take time. It takes water, and it takes growth, fertilizer and growth and all that stuff root growth stuff to help the plant grow. So you're not going to see a result in one day. So you got to always remember that this process of learning chess is day after day after day of learning and learning and learning and learning, making mistakes, learning from those, making more mistakes, learning from those. Okay, let's get on to putting this together, because I always liked Tal games. Tal always had the coolest combinations. Oops, let me see here. They weren't always the most sound combinations, but they were still the coolest. A lot of the computer engines have basically shown that some of his tactical combinations weren't the most sound. So, but you know what? We love them anyways, don't we? We love the after all this, the fog of war is done, all the exchanges and the change of position. You gotta love that. Okay, let me see here. I'm gonna make sure that I look 100% to get this right, because I don't want to have to reset it up. That took a lot of our training time, and I am apologetic about that, because it's I didn't mean to take that much time to get one position set up, but I'm glad we got it right, so that you can go over it later and study and improve as well. Good. Okay. All right. So it's black to move here. I'm excited to see what actually happens. All right. We're going to look at it from black's perspective, which is actually Tal's perspective. Okay, let's do this thing. Okay, white has just captured okay, white has just captured a pawn on f5. The route that could be promising for black would be knight takes f5, but Mikhail Tal noticed that there was a more clear-cut way of playing, which is knight e5 exclam here. This is what a more positional play would probably be knight takes f5. This is a positional move, more Karpov play. And then rook e1, and you have about an equal position after probably queen d7, and if the exchanges happen, and then something similar to like rook here, and then you're basically going to be heading towards more of a draw. So Tal didn't want that. He wanted to, so his opponent actually played, oops, not that, f4 here. If black had played f takes g6, which is actually a mistake here, bishop takes g2, which if you can eliminate a bishop, fianchetto bishop that the king has, these holes end up becoming weaknesses for, if it's black who loses a bishop that's fianchettoed, those end up becoming very weak. And you can take scope on them via like queen b7 and those type of continuations with a lot of pressure down the h1 to a8 diagonal. And so that's oh, that actually is what was played. Okay, so we did have the right thing. So Tal Smyslov played f4 against Tal. Okay, f4. He was not trying to win a piece, but Tal played knight takes, or knight f3 check. Sorry, knight f3. If bishop takes g2, then if f takes e5, this is actually again a mistake here, because queen to a8, and then if pawn takes here, you have queen b7. And how really do you handle how weak white's position is? Because now that the g bishop is gone, now you get to see how weak h1 to a8 diagonal becomes. You could even be down a whole exchange, I mean a whole piece, and still be potentially having a winning position. So Tal just plays here, and Smyslov plays bishop takes, and then bishop takes, and rook e1. Tal had foreseen the reply. He played queen e2 here. A double exclam. A brilliant move. So we get to see a double exclam. Rook takes, rook takes. What most fans enjoyed about Tal was the mighty ability of being able to see these type of variations that were incredible. They were just brilliant moves. It's just amazing how Tal can see these moves. Just amazing. Queen c1. Oops, actually, hold on. Smyslov also played an exclam move of e takes, queen takes d2. And this kind of dwindled down. And then Smyslov played knight b2, exclam. It's really interesting. G takes f. And black has reached an endgame that was only slightly better for him. It was enough to work with at Tal won 45 moves later. Of course, you don't have to basically calculate 12 plus move combinations to become a master. But a much smaller, pretty combination is what a master is stocked in to be able to set up their trades. They have like stock trades, and like they set up combinations that are small enough so that they don't blunder. and make wrong moves. They'll do small ideas and then build up to a bigger idea. And so that's what masters do. When we'll stop here before we move on to another section. Do you have any questions on what we have gone over? I'll do my best to explain it. I'm even still learning along with this too. So. Sorry if I drank in your ear. Just a little thirsty there. I'll take that as a no. Okay. Want to thank you all for logging on, participating. And you know what? Just keep remembering to keep pushing forward, taking what you know. And the sections that we actually went over were, I'm glad that you stuck with me with that. It's the pretty combinations that we went over. We went over separate boxes, which we talked about in that it's we try to divide up positional play when we look at games. We try to divide up attacking when we look at games. But if you do that and you don't go in with a balanced perspective of studying a Grandmaster game, you will overlook several combinations and forcing moves that you can learn from. So just remember to go in with a balanced perspective when you go over Grandmaster games. And remember that all combinations don't always give you a total winning advantage. It could when all the smoke is cleared, it could actually give you a slight advantage into an endgame, maybe a pawn up. And that's good enough with proper endgame understanding for a win. Okay, you know what? Remember that what Bruce Lee said, take what you know and be willing to apply it and to do something with it. And maybe teach somebody what you learned and keep pushing forward. Remember though, as choices and combinations and going into endgames are vital, but also the choice to receive the Lord Jesus, Lord and Savior, as vital. We have to one day decide what we're going to do with Jesus Christ. Okay, remember the Team Chess Cruncher motto is hanging up your coats, hanging up your hats. Sitting down is studying when most won't. Team Chess Cruncher does, and that makes all the difference. And as Wesley So says, serve the Lord Jesus, as I say, God bless. And I'll see you next time on Chess Cruncher TV. Have a blessed morning, afternoon, evening. Lord willing, I'll be back on tomorrow. We'll keep pushing forward, learning and improving, and getting better. Remember, though, what Hannibal Smith said. Even inside of a random position, there's always a plan. And we're seeing that as we're going through the book and learning right alongside with master games and grandmaster and super grandmaster games, that even inside of a position that looks random, there's always a plan. And when we find it, we get to say, I love it when a plan comes together. Okay, 2 thumbs up, hoorah, be blessed, keep pushing forward and having fun. Go Team Chess Cruncher, and I will see you tomorrow. Be blessed. Bye-bye.